One reason we have to be concerned is this: Japan's biggest buyer of U.S. corn. I mean, let's be realistic. If they start to run into an issue, you're going to see issues there. They're also a huge, huge holder of U.S. stocks and equities. If Japan gets into some type of crunch and they get into a liquidity crunch and they have to start reeling it in, stock market may be in for a little hit. You can see some hits across the board. We're seeing for the first time, I said right there, you know, Japan now running a trade deficit, first time since 1963. It kind of flew under the radar screen. Some of the smarter players and some of the smarter money's talking that that may be the biggest headline of the year. Biggest headline, period. Japan cannot operate in that situation, running a trade deficit. How they got into that predicament was because of the tsunami having to shut down, and now they're importers of so much energy. It's thrown the balance sheets way off, and that's what you've seen take place. That's why you've seen Japan come in. The government's trying to intervene and lower the rate of the Japanese yen. So you've got what I like to say: I don't like to fight the governments. So if the Japanese government's trying to hammer the yen, I like to be on their side. It hasn't worked for them well in the last few years, but I see there is no other way they can function without a cheaper yen. Unfortunately, that is the environment that we're in. I think we all, though, need to really take a hard look at where this is at. Debt to GDP ratio is at 230%. That's off the maps. I mean, you know, they were talking with the bailout, Greece is going to get their debt to GDP down to 120%. Japan's like twofold almost. I mean, they're off the charts as far as this speaks. So I got to believe Japan is in a very, very precarious situation, and I don't see it lightening up. I don't know if shorting the Japanese yen is the smartest play in the book. There's, I'm sure, a ton of guys out there, you know, that may be able to come up with some solutions or conclusions on better ways to short the Japanese economy. You may want to look into that or think about that. Just look for some more headlines and more ripples, probably to come from this environment, more so than any other as we move forward. European banks obviously are huge, but this could be a biggie here for U.S. corn market. So I think we just got to kind of play this out and see where we roll from there. Let's keep our eyes on it, though, in the coming weeks. Crude oil, fear in the Middle East. I've been talking about this one in the newsletter for a long time. 3 guys in the audience came up and said, "Ooh, boy, you saved me on the diesel fuel." So I hope people are listening and listening when we say and report some of the things we are. I'm going to go into later how I judge the market. And I should say how I handicap it. We've been able to really catch some big moves from the handicap, just general painting with general broad strokes on some of the turns and changes. Some of you folks know when I went to Chicago this summer, corn was trading north of 750. We were 750, 780 range. All of a sudden, I'm getting a lot of crap being called the big polar bear. All of a sudden, I got bearish up in there. Well, we got bearish ahead of the move, and we made some guys some great sales. We did do some good things, and I had some guys calling in to give me all kinds of crap. And then when all of a sudden we're breaking, last time I'm in Chicago over Christmas, hell, we're talking $4, sub $4 corn and sub $9 beans, and you know the whole sky's falling. And then I flip-flopped on the 22nd or 3rd. I turned bullish. The rest of the crowd's fairly bearish, and now we move back higher. I'm going to show you guys some things to watch on how we handicap this thing, and I think you'll get a kick out of it, because more than anything, I don't want you to leave here and have to be dependent on me. I want you to learn how to look at these things yourself. I want to help you and give you the information, don't get me wrong. But I'd like for you to learn and take the information home so you can use it and do this, teach your kids. We've got that great program going on with all the colleges now. I don't know if any of you heard it. I'm donating, putting all the letters out to the college professors and those kids in the ag programs, because we had a lot of parents call and ask if we would help educate the students. I thought it'd be neat to give it to those guys for free, so I try and put it out just to let them learn the lingo and understand the info, and it's really been good. We've got colleges all over we've got them in South America now, South Africa. A lot of the big college professors here all take it. Chase will tell you it's pretty neat. 3 of the professors called, and they make it a required reading in their class, and they give the kids tests on this report every week or every 2 weeks. So I try and, you know, put some good info in those things that can help people learn how to do it themselves. This Middle East thing, we were telling guys we were selling $75 puts and buying 110 calls just as a little bit of a fuel, like an insurance kitty, we called it. It really isn't a direct hedge for diesel. Let's be serious. I mean, you know, some guys like to use heating oil and things. I don't see it. I think you get more tripped up than you do anything else. So we'll put on like some fuel, let's just call it making a little money for the insurance kitty. And you had a chance to buy farm diesel below $3. You had to feel that your downside risk when oil got down into those 80, low 80s, high 70s, your risk is going to be to the upside to an extent. You had Saudi Arabia, their budget policy is set up to, they need $80 crude just from the recent money that they've tied up with the budget to try and appease the troops and try and appease the crowds. I know Emily talked about the Arab Spring and those things. We're seeing that a lot. We're seeing the budget on some of these Middle Eastern countries rise. I told farmers, I said, listen, here's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid the markets controlling you. You have to get ahead of the game, so to speak. The last thing you want to do, you guys sit out here and you want to jack with this fuel and say, well, they say it's always the cheapest in February. Okay, well, we know that there's big risk to the upside, so we understand. We've heard people say there's potential for crude to go to 150 in 30 days. Well, here we are now at 110, 108 today. You got Brent at 120 something. Everyone's like, oh, that can't happen. We can't do that. And then there's the guys say, well, crude could go to 200 within 45 days to 60 days. Oh, no way. And you got guys now saying crude could go to 300 within 120 to, 3 months if something major, some type of major outbreak plays out. So the last thing you want to happen is you get ready to go planting season and get ready to plant and you have not bought your fuel. Now all of a sudden you're held at the mercy of the markets. We know crude can't maintain itself at $300. We know the world economies will come to a screeching halt, but I'll be damned if you don't have to buy your crude oil at the high of the market because you sat there and did not look at the risk associated with this situation. So understand and try and get ahead of the game. Don't look at price, understand the value, understand risk. So the big thing here and the big takeaway is that I still believe there's a ton of upside risk in crude oil. I believe the market's undervaluing it, period, plain and simple. U.S. has pulled out. U.S. has been there for a number of years. Egypt, who used to police the Middle East, they can no longer even police themselves. We've seen what happened. They're having massive problems internally. You have Turkey, who's now upset with Israel. You got Israel upset with Iran. Iran, who knows what's going to happen with Saudi Arabia. And you have to understand the issue is, just like I talked about that food line, no one wants in line behind China. China and India have low energy supplies, surpluses right now. Iran's one of their sources. Some of those sources in the Middle East. If they have to look all of a sudden for an alternative, they're going to jump in line and start bidding it up. And when they bid up the prices, here we go. We're taking off. That's what the market is pricing in right here. That's what people want to price into these markets. Funds want to believe a bullish story. A bullish crude oil story is a very easy one to sell. So understand that they're going to probably stoke these flames aggressively. So your risk, in my opinion, is still to the upside. Yes, I understand China's slowing. Yes, they could predict growth under 8%. Yes, I understand all of these things. But people want to invest in something, story of this nature. Money will flow in this direction on the drop of a dime if there is an issue. So you can be a brainiac and you can tell me all the S&D numbers and everything you want to about energy and about the economy and the world. But I promise you, if there is an issue over in these parts, this thing's taken off. So have fuel on hand so you are not held at that mercy. That's all I suggest. I just say have enough fuel to get you through the planting season, then let's readjust and see where we're at. I'm definitely not saying we can sustain those levels. You have the Saudi prince situation as well. Everyone's unsure of that. The Saudi prince, obviously, the last couple of years been, Saudi king's been seriously sick, in the hospital, in and out, numerous times. Understand it doesn't pass from brother to brother. I mean, it doesn't pass from brother to son. It goes from brother to brother. There's 10, 11 brothers, all in different areas of Saudi Arabia. Obviously, just like you guys and your families, when there's a death and there's money left, there's probably going to be some turbulence. There's going to be some arguing over it to who's in charge and who's not in charge. The brainiacs of the world say that if this takes place, this leaves Saudi Arabia the most vulnerable. Iran would look at this as some type of opportunity if they were to make a move. You would have internal issues taking place. You would have some as Emily would say, inward-looking Saudi Arabia more so than ever. Saudi Arabia, I don't think, is afraid to rule by the sword as well. They've said it numerous times. So there is definite hostility. You have Iran right now who's getting a little bit upset as well with Saudi Arabia, I think, because Saudi Arabia now all of a sudden is making relationships with China. And they're making more relationships off over here. So I'm telling you, that whole OPEC nation and things are really, really brewing. And the people that are going behind Iran's back and making deals and cutting deals, it's starting to get, it's just starting to heat Iran up more and more. So who knows? I mean, every day it's a new headline, and every day it's, we're on the edge of our seat to see if Iran's going to launch the missiles, or Israel, or Saudi Arabia, or who knows. But I just want to leave you with that fact that you have to look at all of the dynamics that are taking place, and you have to factor these into your marketing plans. So be on your toes as far as the diesel fuel is concerned, especially. I went to one meeting in Iowa. It was Illinois, man. This was way back 2 months ago. There happened to be one of the diesel salesmen in the audience, and he's like, "Man, what do I owe you for that speech? That was great." He's like, "Got them all to get some oil, get some diesel." I said, I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, didn't plan on that. The next one, social networking. I kind of like this one just because I do think it is so, so important, and it has absolutely changed the world. The couple of speakers ahead of us have talked about it. You just really have a shift in power. I mean, the shift in power has gone from the institutions to the individuals. And that is what it is. Let's call it how we see it here. I think, your WikiLeaks, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got everything under the sun. And no longer can documents just be held or manipulated or hidden to an extent. And no longer is that the case. I tell retailers or guys, I mean, you used to get your information from the corporation or upline, I would call it. Those decisions no longer, those don't matter. They could give you a sales skid sheet on corn or beans or a new product of fertilizer that you don't care. You're going to get your buying decisions from your friends and your peers around you because it has become so easy. Social networking has changed the entire game from politics down to sales, information, all the way along the spectrum. The other issue, and I think Emily alluded to, is youth unemployment soaring around the world. Now, come on. You've seen my son. He's 16 years old. My daughter's 14. My wife says, if you don't keep these kids busy, they're going to get into trouble. I said, no way. She says, now, I know how you were, and my sister would probably tell you, I was perfect. Just kidding. I was a little ornery. So understand, like she says and points out, when you have a youth population who is out of work, I think right now, what do they say in Spain? Youth unemployment's running at 50%. U.S. here, we're at 23, probably, those are the numbers we see realistically, we're probably 25, 26. As the older population has had to come down the food chain, so to speak, as jobs, and they've taken the jobs from the younger kids, those jobs aren't available. So now you have the younger population with access to social networking. Imagine, when I was 16, no job, say, we want to have a party at Jay's house. With social networking, that could have been real quick, and we could have Jay's house torn up in 20 minutes. His parents would have been blowing up. So, it took a little more power to have those parties and have those types of things going on. So that's no longer the case. That's why we get these crazy Occupy Wall Street movements. Next thing, we got 200,000 people in a park outside of New York. I mean, boom, blink of an eye. Same thing happening in, across the whole entire Middle East. They obviously banned Facebook and those types of things in China. China just says we can't have it. And you're getting these underground things popping up and things of that nature. So